Yeah. So here, what happened? I created a table which points to the same location, and I'm just trying to read the data. So today what you can do is you can, I'll give a file location. You can upload a file location and you can start reading the data using external table. That you can do. Okay, that you can do. And coming to some of the things, say suppose some of you are like somebody ask you in interview, what are the tables you have and how many schemas you have? Do you have any schemas in particular? Okay, so usually whenever you are writing, whenever you are developing your application, how do you segregate the tables?
With the schema.
With the schema, right? So what are the names that you use usually?
The common is DBO. DBO
is the
and
default one.
Default one, and sometime we are created with the organization name.
Okay.
Like this.
And say
Or
suppose
project names.
Yeah, project name, right?
Project name.
Yeah. So here I created a same link data scheme. Okay. So sometimes you say that in interview, like you have like logging tables, okay, error tables, and you have some data, and even you have some metadata tables. Okay. You should be able to explain in detail saying that I have it. We managed all this in different schema. We created something called metadata schema where we store all the metadata tables, and we created something called ETL logs schema where we store all ETL logs, logging tables and error log tables, and then we have data schema where we usually store all the data. Okay, so ETL log is not specific to any even into Azure, but even SSIS AGS also we used to use same ETL logs. So most of the people use that one. So you can see ETL logs or DB logs or logs. So you should be able to tell them that. So you are using the different schemas for the tables and logging. So when they ask you like how you are managing logging and error handling in your application, then you should say that we are using some procedures to compute the, or sorry, to extract the data logs or error logs, then the logging of all the operations, and we are storing in explicitly in log tables which are created as part of the ETL log schema. Okay, and in SSIS package or in any another application, when you, how do you log the table? Say suppose there is some process in SSIS which is taking the data from one location to another location. So what do? How do you log that? How do you manage that this logging process of this particular loading? Some of you already done with SSIS. So how do you do that?
I mean, when you are transferring data from source to destination, I mean, I didn't get the logging means.
No, let me see. Suppose say that your then SSIS package called load EMP. Okay, the package name is load EMP. Okay, now in your project, how you're logging this? So saying that when it has started, when it is ended, the package, that you should do that, right?
Yeah, we have logging mechanism where there are options like we can store it to SQL table, SSIS log.
We'll be having an external table logging all the file details.
But you're not using any procedure kind of which logs the data into your derived your user defined table.
No, till now we are not done. We are using only the SSIS log table. I mean,
oh, the surprise. But in big applications, whenever you do that, we don't depend on logs, right? So because you will create your own table mechanism, because sometimes I might need create a report after it. Okay.
Yeah, like okay, when that started, when it executed.
Yes, when it started. So what do? You'll write a procedure in the beginning. You'll call a procedure in the beginning of the package or ADF pipeline where you will insert a record into your log file, log table. Then end of the package, you'll call again, right? You'll call the same procedure which updates this status, whether it is pass or fail. Okay, that you did not do. Okay, so you should use such kind of things. I'll discuss in one of the session. So where we will do this. Okay?
Yeah, I think we need this in Azure because I see few of the people are using this.
Yes, yes. Logging is very important topic. Logging and error handling is very important topic in the Azure because Azure data, because we have tons of the data, tons of resources. There will be a proper mechanism should be implemented to handle all the logs and errors. Okay, that you need to have understanding on that. And that's where the interviewer will assess your real-time skills, right? Getting what I'm trying to say. Okay. And here external data I created. So external data, that is about the external table. So external table is a logical table which is used to read or write the data which is available on the storage location. All right. So that is about external data source. Give me a minute. Yeah, so that's about external table and serverless SQL pool. And let's go here, serverless SQL pool over here. And you can monitor the SQL pools over here. Okay, we have built-in SQL pool. If you remember that, which I have created. Sorry, which was created by default. And the data process time last 15 minutes 0.48 MB. The data is processed. Okay, there are no running requests. All right. There's no SQL request. And yeah, go to manage. This is a built-in we have. All right. And here SQL pool we have. Thought I have. Yes, sorry, man. I think there is some connection issue. Multiple issues are there today. I'm extremely sorry for that. What I was showing that, yeah. Yeah. See here, are you able to see my screen or it got stopped?
Not it.
I think it got stopped. I have 3 backups at home. One is two routers I have, and I have Zio and I have phone. None of them working today, unfortunately. Yeah. So here, so how do you create a pools over here? So you can go to manage and you can create a even SQL pool here over here, dedicated SQL pool or anything over here. Okay, this is a dedicated SQL pool which you can create, but we don't do that. Let me wait and show you something. Yeah. So this is a pool which I have. This is a SQL pool. Here also you can see what is the SQL pools which I have. Okay, you can create a dedicated SQL pool here as well. Apart from this workspace, you can create even from the Azure portal as well. That's about the external table. And today what you would do is you will create a workspace. Okay, I'll give one of the location of any publicly available file. Okay, you create that file, or if you have any Parquet file, you upload it. You create external data source, you create external file format and read that file, which is in CSV. You take CSV file and try to do that today.
Also, like we got a free subscription. I got a free subscription about it. Will it
Yeah.
be cost monthly?
No, it's free subscription. Why would it cost? No, it doesn't cost. Now let's see what is dedicated SQL pool. Okay, so dedicated SQL pool, as I said, it's a formerly called SQL DW. So initially when Azure data started, so they created something called SQL data warehouse. Then they named it as Azure Synapse database. Then finally they created Synapse workspace itself and they named it as dedicated SQL pool. So dedicated SQL pool is nothing but a SQL data warehouse. Okay, so dedicated SQL pool refers to the enterprise data warehousing feature that are available in Azure Synapse Analytics. So basically, dedicated SQL pool usually used for enterprise data warehouse features. Okay, the size of the data dedicated SQL pool is determined by data warehousing unit. Okay, and data warehousing is a combination of CPU, memory, and IO. Okay, so dedicated SQL pool which is available in the Azure data. So it's basically refers to a enterprise data warehouse, and the size of a dedicated SQL pool is determined by the data warehousing unit. So it is very important thing. So how do you measure the size of the dedicated SQL pool? Using DW, data warehousing unit. So it's a combination of a CPU, memory, and IO. These three things are there. And if you see this chart, so dedicated SQL pool you can create separately. Okay, so say suppose you want to write some application, you want to process some data and store it in a data warehouse, okay, without using Synapse. So you can create dedicated SQL pool separately, or you can create as part of the Synapse Analytics as well. Okay, so in the Synapse Analytics, how I was doing that, where it has gone. Okay, so in the Synapse workspace, I can go to SQL pool. I can create the dedicated SQL pool. Okay, here I can create a dedicated SQL pool, or you can create over here in the as part of the Synapse workspace. Or what I can do is I can create separately as well, as I was showing in the this one where did that chart, the slide. Getting? So dedicated SQL pool you can create independently, or you can create as part of the Synapse workspace. You can create in two ways, as I was showing. Okay, so dedicated SQL pool basically refers to enterprise data warehouse feature, and you can create either separately or you can create the Azure Synapse Analytics, and the size is measured with the help of DW data warehousing unit, which is combination of CPU, memory, and IO. All right. Yeah, and when it comes to data dedicated SQL pool, usually it works with the MPP architecture. Are you with me or not? Okay. MPP architecture. Okay, massive parallel processing. So MPP architecture is a kind of one of the a new architecture which is being used in the data world, okay, for multiprocessing. So whenever you have tons of data, still you cannot go for the single processing, right? So you should have a mechanism to perform multiprocessing, okay? So all the data should be divided into multiple things so that the data reading and writing will be very quick because of the data volume. Okay, so even Azure Databricks Synapse, Azure Databricks also, or Apache Spark also based on the MPP architecture. So MPP architecture is a common type of architecture. It is not particular to dedicated SQL pool. So even Databricks uses that, even Snowflake uses that, many technologies uses that MPP architecture. Are you with me?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
So in MPP architecture, there are the two things which are very important: the control node and compute node. So I'm talking about in general, not particular to SQL here. So usually you have a control node and compute node. Okay. So what is control node? Control node will handle all the query engine. Okay. Compute node will execute all the queries. Okay, so whenever it connected to application user connection, say suppose you gave a query, okay, big query which reads tons of the data, then it passes to control node. Then in the control node, what it does, it breaks into small chunks, and it gives the data it gives that all the chunks to all these compute nodes. Okay, these compute nodes in turn computes the data which is available in the Azure storage, okay, when it comes to dedicated SQL pool, and return back to this control node. Okay, and the data will be, the amount of the data will be huge, right? So the data will be moved from one compute node to another compute node using data movement service, DMS. Okay, so the important topics are the control node and compute node. Control node will handle all the query engine. It breaks the query the data into small chunks, and it passes the data to all the compute nodes, and the compute nodes compute the data using the data movement service. The data will be moved across the compute node. Once the query is determined, then the data will be pushed back to the control node, and the data is available on the Azure storage. Okay, and we'll talk about in detail in next session in detail. But this is how a MPP architecture usually works: the control node, compute node, and data movement service, and Azure storage mechanism. uh, I was about to say something, I forgot. So we have like a massive parallel processing engine, even the dedicated SQL pool, or the Azure Databricks, or Spark pool also, Apache Spark pool also developed on MPP architecture only. And whenever you process some data, it divides into 60 small chunks. So 60 compute nodes will be there, and it shares all the data load to 60 nodes. Okay, then the 60 nodes will compute the data and gives back to the control node. Okay, so that also you need to remember, it will divide into the 60 nodes when it comes to dedicated SQL pool.
0 or 16?
60.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that's about the MPP architecture. We'll talk more about detail, and we'll see one of the important concept called distributed method, how the data will be distributed in the MPP architecture, and what are the methods are there, hash, round robin, applicated, and for what table you need to use when the data is big, which distribution method you need to use, when the data is very small, which distribution method you need to use. We'll talk about it. Then we will see also what are the basic indexes which are available in the dedicated SQL pool. Then we'll create few of the tables, we'll read the data, we'll write the data, we'll see that in the next session.